So hello everybody, and especially hello Saša. So thanks for tuning in to our event today. We're gonna watch Saša Spačal's, is your name right? Am I pronouncing it right? Like a short film of about your installation Earthlink. And just a technical note up front, I think most of you already have their mic on off. That's great, so there's no background noise. And yeah, most people already show their face, but you don't have to, but it's nice, if we can see who is joining us today. And so maybe a little introduction about you, Saša. You're a post-media artist from Slovenia, and you're working at the intersection of living systems research, contemporary and sound art, and your work focuses primarily on the posthuman condition, which is your idea maybe of human beings existing and acting as one of many elements in the ecosystem and not as sovereigns as we do now. And your work was exhibited and performed at venues and festivals such as the Ars Electronica Festival, the Pre-Cube exhibition in France, the Transmedial Festival, the Digital Arts Festival in Greek, and many others. So we're very happy that you're joining us today and that we have the opportunity to ask you some questions, as your art is very multi-layered and somehow complex because it deals with biological themes. And yeah, before we jump into any questions, maybe one question: how are you? And you're joining us from Ljubljana, right? Is that your hometown?
Yes, I'm from Ljubljana. I'm here at the moment in lockdown, waiting to get out. Everything is loosening up here a bit, and I'm okay, thank you. Healthy.
Good. So then maybe we will start with Earthlink now.
I'm going to share my screen now. I'm going to check with you whether you see it fine. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Earthlink, life in biogeochemical feedback loops. Earthlink is a system of biotechnological installations which map posthuman entanglements, where the pronoun we includes human and more than human beings and elements inhabiting territories from micro to macro scale. Earthlink aims to serve as an entrance point to the post-anthropocentric constellation of environmental relations, which enable dynamic perception of human activity within biogeochemical feedback loops of the environment. With Earthlink, human respiratory feedback loop is immersed in an entanglement of feedback loops that are performed by a multiplicity of non-anthropomorphic agents. Two phases of the respiratory process are embodied into installations: inspiration, the breathing station, and expiration, the breath collector, which are linked into a feedback loop with Symbiome, the breath negotiator. Inspiration, the breathing station. Inspiration, the breathing station, dispenses air enriched with soil bacteria Mycobacterium vaccae, which has been found by scientists to improve mood, reduce anxiety, and increase mental capacity. However, the dose of the distributed air is not always guaranteed or evenly enriched by algorithms controlling the respiratory masks. Breathing is an intimate process that binds humans to the planet. But what happens when this relation is technologically mediated? Who or what dispenses the dose? What does this dose contain? Who will survive? Expiration, the breath collector. Expiration, the breath collector, gathers the respiratory microbiome of visitors onto externalized lungs coated with growth medium. Droplets of the graveyard cypress Cupresus sempervirens distillate perform cleansing of human and non-human excrements. However, part of them still burns and vaporizes on the hot, dry soil below. How will we, as both human and non-human, survive? How do we grieve for all that burns and expires? Symbiome, the breath negotiator. Symbiome, the breath negotiator, is inhabited by red clover Trifolium pratense and the Rhizobium bacteria, which are in symbiotic relationship, constantly negotiating the exchange of oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen compounds. Symbiotic process in the installation influences the frequency of dripping water, causing ripples, which go beyond symbiotic feedback loop into extended environment. During symbiosis, species are continuously negotiating not only the use of natural resources, but also the quality of their relationships. Due to environmental conditions, symbionts may collaborate, compete, or give up on their partners. Exchange is crucial for human and more than human living. How does the entanglement of non-unitary and multiple we connect when environmental conditions fluctuate in unexpected ways? Microbial biomes, the mediators. Microbial biomes are inhabited by a multiplicity of non-anthropomorphic agents that perform feedback looping processes on various scales. Soil, plant seeds, bones of industrial chicken, bacteria, flies, mushrooms, lava stones, air, water, microplastics, cat fur, bird feathers, human hair, and many not named critters share their microbiomes via airflow in the interconnected entanglement. How does we transform while toxicity flows in biogeochemical feedback loops?
Okay. So thanks for sharing this with us. I think it's very impressive in the sense, I mean, it's sad that we don't get to experience the installation for ourselves at this time because it's not possible. But I think the movie is it also tells a lot about what we could experience if we would visit this installation. And speaking for myself, I've never seen something like that, so I find it very interesting. And maybe before sharing our questions and our reaction to the short film, we will make this little interview. So Earthlink is an installation which combines a lot of different ideas about the world we live in or even might live in someday. But every part of this installation revolves somehow around air. To put it simple, on the one hand, around the air that we breathe in, which is part of the installation Inspiration. On the other hand, about the air that we breathe out, which is part of the installation Expiration. And there, how it is shown in the short film, you can transfer your personal microbiome to something like an exteriorized lung by breathing out. So for all of us who aren't too familiar with microbiology, what actually is our personal microbiome and what does this installation capture exactly when talking about the microbiome? And the second part of this question, you already did a lot of installations with microorganisms. What fascinates you about them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the microbiome is this fascinating community that basically of fungi, bacteria, and archaea that live on our bodies, in our bodies, but not only on human bodies, also on plants, animals. Also, this table in front of me has a bit of my microbiome now on it. So it's like, it's everywhere. It's almost as air. So, and that is really the most, one of the fascinations with microbiome for me is Also fascination that from which I built a work from, that I can tell you about it, is this, that the people you live with, you share your microbiome. When we started first research into microbiome and we went to the lab, and just several people gave their microbiome, just like scratch a bit of skin behind the ear or put some hair on the nutrient, and in a few days we had microbiomes in front of us, and with people we live with, we have the same bacteria and fungi living on us. So this is something that binds us basically, because it gets really interesting once you find out that microbiome is between 30 and 50% of the body, so of the human body. So it's not just our body, it's like a lot of other beings' body also. So for me it was fascinating to think then, like, where is the border between my body and other person's body if we have the same bacteria, fungi, and archaea, the same microbiome. So with that thing in mind, then we built a music box. I call it, I can share a link to that project if you want. So you can, you see what it is, and you can maybe ask me questions later on about it. But I'm not going to talk so much about it, but what I want to tell you is that when about this project is that when a visitor comes and presses the button to play the music box, it actually plays on microbiomes of 3 different people. 3 different people's biome. That's because we're 3 authors of this project, Miriam Schwager, me, and Anil Podgornik. We donated our microbiome, so that the microbiome then modulates the sound in the music box.
Okay.
So that was the idea, how to show that this is basically the same kind of community of microorganisms that keeps us alive also.
Yeah, it's very impressive to think about the fact that there's so much more that we can't see but still is part of us. Coming back to the installation in Earthlink, so when people breathe through those, little tubes, so they're transferring the microbiome, and what happens then? How will it evolve over time?
Yeah. What I put inside, you when you saw this hairy structure, well, that all grew during the exhibition, basically. What I put in the beginning of the exhibition is just this is a glass structure full of nutrient, very delicious nutrient for microbiome. So when you breathe in, you breathe the bacteria from your lungs, from your throat, from your mouth onto that installation, and then that's why it's like a community piece, because everybody who comes and visits the installation leaves a piece of themselves in there.
So every visitor participates in making a microbiome together in some sense. Yeah. Okay. So your art, in this case Earthlink, deals with complex aspects like microbiology. Some of us haven't heard of it maybe. And in this installation, talking about the Inspiration installation, where it's about breathing in, incorporated algina capsules filled with bacteria and soil, which then through disintegration, it's a bit complicated, saturates the air with particles of the Mycobacterium vaccae, which is also called the happiness bacterium because it's known to reduce anxiety in humans. So that's also a technical thing, biotechnical thing. How was your process of crafting this installation? Like coming to this idea, and also to what degree and in what way do you involve scientists or experts on the topic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll just explain on this case. It was like I read a lot of articles, scientific articles, a lot of different things, and then I always get this kind of fascination with some idea or something. And with Inspiration, I read an article about how gardeners are very happy people because they inhale a lot of this bacteria. It sounded really. I didn't believe it. I was like, no, this can't be true. This is weird. But then I did more research, and I also asked microbiologist Miriam Schwagel, who helped me on this project to look into it, and it turned out to be true, that it works, and that there were also some clinical tests were already done and things like that. It was also researched as this particular bacteria comes from the same genus as tuberculosis. So it was researched as a possible cure for tuberculosis. And while it was researched as a possible cure for tuberculosis, they realized it was actually making people feel better. It didn't help for tuberculosis, but people felt like happier in a way. So less anxiety and depression on that side. So that's how it went. And then, of course, my next step is always to think of safety, how safe it is for the wider public, because, of course, something is, if you have a clinical examination of bacteria, but then if you put it out into wider public where people have different immune systems, and then you have to really take care of that. So then we developed a perfect protocol that would be safe for anybody to basically inhale this. And and then we just build it, and that's it.
Yeah, so I never heard about this happiness bacterium before, and then I got into the subject. And for all of you who are interested, I think the microorganisms and all of the microbiome and stuff, it's so interesting, because I think a lot of people don't know what impact they can have, and also we don't really understand how it works. So I think it's very interesting how you incorporate that into your work. And because we can't visit Earthlink, did people who get the chance to visit the installation share their thoughts with you? What was their reaction? And also, do you actually, when you go to the installation Inspiration, where the happiness bacterium is, do you actually feel something, or did visitors tell you that they feel something?
Okay. It was really funny to observe people around this installation, because I don't know if you caught it in the video, but the installation doesn't give the same dose to everyone.
Yeah.
So sometimes you get it, or sometimes you get less. So then I observed people, and people were going around the installation trying to get as much as possible. So of course, everybody wants to be happy. That was fun. We made a lot of jokes about that with them, actually. So that was one thing. The thing that about the effectiveness of this bacteria, which was quite interesting, is that some months after this installation was exhibited at Ars Electronica, I got an email from a person thanking me that I told them about this bacteria. Mm. And he also told me that he's not much happier because he found somewhere in the United States they're selling actually supplements with this bacteria. And they work, it seems, at least on this person. He felt much less depressed and less anxiety, and so it seems to have an effect if it's not placebo, but it's the other thing is that you would need to really take in this bacteria every day. So when you come to the installation, you just get the smell. The smell is like this faint cheesy smell. Not everybody likes it because it's from soil, it's like decomposing kind of smell. So yeah, this is how it is.
Okay, so that's interesting that you actually can smell it, this bacterium, and that it has an impact on you. So maybe in the end of this short interview, I would also like to talk about your intent or idea with this installation. So for me, Earthlink shows what a complex and symbiotic relationship we humans share with our environment, and also a world like microorganisms that we don't really understand, and still we act as if this wasn't the case. So for you, it seems to be a lot about our relationship as humans with the environment, but at the beginning of the film you also mention, or there's a posthuman subject mentioned, and its relational capacity for non-anthropomorphic elements. Can you elaborate what that means?
Mm-hmm. Actually, what I wanted to do with this installation is sort of expand the relational capacity in the minds of people, to show them in a way we're in this in this entanglement of relationships, and that's why I needed all these different elements, like also plants are there, also like bits of animals are there, also stones are there, to show that we're immersed in this ecosystem. Although I'm lately very much researching this idea of thinking of the biology as a system, because I'm not so sure that it's a system. It's more like an entanglement. The system, it always has like controlled inputs and outputs, and you get a controlled thing out. But with ecosystem, it's much more entangled and much more feedback looping thing that you don't know. It has leakages, and you don't know what kind of reaction you're going to get out of it. So also a bit in Earthlink, you can see this, that one symbiome, which we didn't talk about yet, it's also leaking a bit into other system, which is not present there, but it's also somehow implicit in there. So, yeah.
Okay, so I mean that's very interesting. Like, it's so complex, you can't really understand what happens at every second, even it's just an installation, maybe? Mm-hmm. Would you say it like that? But also, what means a post-human subject for you? That's what I was also interested in.
Yeah, this goes back to the idea that of how can I say this idea of enlightenment, when you have the human who controls natural environments and controls everything around it, and the post-human subject is somebody who's immersed, tries to understand all the different beings and complexities around them. Also in the video, you could see that I'm talking about this. What is this we that we are talking about? Even as humans, which we are we talking about? Are we talking about European we? Are we talking about, like, you know, there's different classes, different ethnicities. So we have to be really aware of this we. And then the other thing is also how to develop this kind of ethical approach to other beings, because we're not so good at it. We're really bad at this. So I think we should, that's the post-human subject, is somebody who questions that and tries to find methods to do it in a different way.
Okay, but still it can be human, right? So it's also like a...
Of course, yes.
Okay. So yeah, thank you very much for your insights. And I'd say now you can just ask questions, and I will hand over to Maike, which will organize the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Charlene, and thank you, Saša. Very inspiring, and I very much like the contrast of the, I would say, rather clinical way of installation versus the meaning, which is kind of the idea that we're all connected with everything that surrounds us, and that is nature, that is the environment, that is everything. I really like the contrast. It's quite it's quite inspiring, really. So the Q&A, sorry, I'm rambling on. The Q&A will work as follows. You can raise your hand like this, and you can unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can go in Zoom at the bottom, mostly at the bottom. In the Zoom menu, you have 3 dots, and you can raise your hand. And you can ask your question also with video if you like. That's the preferred way to see you. If you just like to ask it with audio, it's also fine. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand like this, or with a digital hand. If there are any questions. Ola has a question.
Hi, first of all, thank you so much. It's really amazing to see your project today. And I wanted to ask you about the project you actually linked. You say that you can play a biome there. Could you explain it a bit more?
Yeah, actually did you look at the project? Or I can, there at the back of the project, there are 3 petri dishes with biomes growing there all through the exhibition. And the circuit in the project is like that, when person presses the button, the electricity travels through the microbiomes, and they change the resistance in electricity, and this change electrical resistance and modulates the sound of the machine.
Thank you so much. I would also ask another question, can I? Yeah, so I wanted to ask you if you maybe know any projects about people who are struggling with depressions or anxieties that actually work on farms and could inhale this thing you talked about?
No, I didn't hear about this kind of, I just read like years ago about projects that they bring inmates from prisons to work on farms, and it helps with their integration into society, but not like something that would be really connected to this bacteria.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Any questions? If nobody has a question, I would ask one. So your project Earthlink really goes with the topic of our event program right now. The realization that we're connected with everything, like what surrounds us, the ocean, nature. I mean, we call it nature, but we're like humans and nature are actually one thing. So you, like in your work, you also see that every element you can go to the atom level has some sort of effect. So everything is fluid, everything has an effect. The breath has, like the in-breath, the exhale, everything has an effect. And so I can assume that while this is kind of also your mission, like to show that it's time to realize this. And for us, it's also to understand that knowing this, that we're connected with everything, then of course we also, with this awareness, we might have a little bit of more a sense of caring. Yeah, so caring for whatever happens out there also has an effect on me, really, like this awareness, like of course gives us a completely different level of living. So my question is, do you feel like that your work also has this kind of effect on people? I know it's really far away because, of course, when you get into this kind of in a room with this installation, do people understand this? Do you feel like they get this far? Or first of all, I don't know if this is actually your mission, but I kind of think there's a parallel between what we do and you do.
Of course, there is, I hope, that it expands their worldview or just like triggers something that they start thinking about these kind of things. And of course that, and exactly about the caring and all the vulnerabilities that we're carrying it was, and making them, and how to develop this kind of different, like I said before, like this kind of different approaches of understanding this otherness that is around us, because this is, I think that's where the work needs to be done. It's just different methods of how like you're looking for plants, which plants to have and how to handle them, you know. It's like a lot of, with every new being that comes in a person's life, there's a lot of observation, a lot of getting to know, to see what is okay for both species, I think. And that's on a personal level. Of course, there's on a systematic level, social level, there's a lot of things to be done. Yeah, I hope that happens to people, of course. Yeah. But there is also another thing that is also very important is you see in my installation, there is also a lot of technology being used. And that's another thing. Technologies won't go away. That's part of, and the thing that I feel it's really important to think about is how are we using them, and what kind of politics do they bring with them. That's why also, for example, in Inspiration, the breathing station, the algorithm decides how much of the air this happiness air you get, because I wanted people to think, how are we getting any air? Because you don't need to have a breathing station for your air to be decided on. Maybe you live in a city which is very polluted and things like that. So these are two elements that we have to, like biological life and technological, think about how are we bringing them together. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So this is another level of questions, actually, the technology and how we use it. Thank you so much. I want to give the chance to someone else asking a question. If you want to raise your hand, Veronica, yes. And then there's also a question from Tim afterwards. Veronica first. And you can unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay. I wanted to know a bit about the context of this exhibition. So where were you showing it? And how do you depend on institutions to support your concepts and ideas?
Mm-hmm. This installation was developed in Ljubljana. It was I was invited to have a solo exhibition at a city gallery, and they provided me with that. There's a city gallery and museums of Ljubljana, and also there is an institute, Project Earthlink, that helped me with funding the project. And then the footage that you saw was done at Ars Electronica in Linz. So I hope I answered your question. Is there something else?
Yeah, I was just more interested in within the art world, where does the ecological work sit? So you're clearly not part of the commercial art world.
No. I see my work more as a research-based art. So yeah, so usually my works are exhibited in museums and galleries that are interested in this kind of research works.
And you would also say it leans towards activism?
It has some ideas of that, yeah.
Has your question been answered? Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much. Thank you. So I have one question from Tim. Tim, you can also unmute yourself if you wish to, but I can also ask your question if you prefer that. Okay, no microphone. So his question is, are there any ways to influence our personal microbiome in a beneficial way?
Oh, millions. There's so many. It depends on which kind, because there are different parts of the body. It's on the skin, in your mouth, in your throat, in your gut. So it depends which one, and then you have to research and see how for the gut you have to eat particular foods, and yeah, it's just, this is endless discussion. It depends what needed.
And your personal recommendations or anything you apply in your life or so? Just another follow-up question on this. Do you have anything to share? I don't know.
Basically, because I observe my body a lot. So if I feel that something is off, I just go research and find but yeah, that's what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Great. Any more questions from anyone? We still have a few minutes. Charlene, yes.
Yeah, I have one more. I wanted to ask that's something a friend of mine mentioned or like inspired me to ask. I mean, your artwork is a lot about like balance and how we're in a symbiotic relationship and codependent within our environment with microorganisms, but bringing them into like a lab, into something outside. I mean, well, microbiomes are everywhere, but like bringing nature in something, I don't know, in such an installation, isn't it a way also of accepting that we have the power to do so, to like be superior? Or how would you say is the relationship of microbiome or nature and humans in your art? How would you describe this relationship? Because it's kind of altered or manipulated in some way.
Of course, it's dealing with that, but I see that bringing with Earthlink, I bring this respiratory feedback loop, and it's almost like in a lab, I isolate it from the environment to show it how it lives on. And of course, you also, after the exhibition is over, I usually take care of all the beings that are in the installation, and try to put them back into the environment where I find them. So we manipulate environment, of course, but it manipulates us also. So it goes both ways.
I didn't find my mic. Thank you.
Great. Any more questions? We're kind of coming to the end, but yes, Saurabh?
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for enlightening us with this wonderful knowledge and sharing it with us, Saša. And second of all, I want to ask you that you earlier mentioned that you see biology as not a system, but rather an entanglement. I'm sorry, I couldn't connect. I couldn't understand that. What are you trying to mention over there? So if you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, I'm still because as you maybe heard when they read the description of what I do, I've been using living systems for a long time, and I'm just lately realized that it's not, what environment is not a machine. It's not just a system. So it has to be because when you say a system, it's something you control. It's a machine that you build. You press a button, it does the things. With the environment, it's not. I don't see it as such. So I'm now looking for the right kind of word that would describe this kind of, I use for now entanglement, but this kind of living processes, which I see that there are feedback looping, as we can see feedback loops in the computer systems and stuff like that, but it's not in the same kind of way, I think. So that's how far I got till now.
Thank you, and all the very best for your work.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more question from Carla. Carla, do you want to ask it, or should I ask for you? Okay, I ask for her. So it's around the ocean generating oxygen, also about breathing. So because we know the ocean generates every second breath of oxygen, the phytoplankton. Carla's question is if you are interested in working on this topic as well, or have you come across this, the idea of working on this in any kind of arty way?
I'm more like a soil person. I work with organisms from soil because I worked with fungi and different kind of bacteria. So ocean is completely different field again. But the funny thing is that soil has also breathing, and I'm thinking about soil breathing also lately. So, but who knows? Maybe someday.
Great. All right, perfect. So I maybe ask one last question, unless we have any more. My question would be: you just hinted towards your art possibly also having an activist kind of element to it, or so. What is your personal biggest wish right now? In the daily life we have right now? I mean, we have a little bit of a different daily life now, so we see a chance. Maybe you also see something you haven't seen before. So I was just, because this kind of is also a big topic in the last few events we had, we noticed that people really are looking at things in a different way. So maybe you also have some sort of you're observing something different with this corona crisis, or maybe you have a personal wish. If you say you see yourself also as like a tiny bit of an activist or so.
What I'm really enjoying in these times is the silence and the peace. And I know my wish is like, it's once everything starts, like when we go out and start working again, and this silence will be gone. But I'm really amazed of how silent cities can be, and so how peaceful the daily life can be. So that's my wish would be that we would just but that's a wish for, how can I say, it would have to happen in many heads on this planet, that we would start doing things differently.
Mm-hmm. We're all in one boat here, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And with this said, I would hand over the microphone to you, Charlene. Thank you so much for the Q&A and all the questions and your interest. That was really nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, also from my side, thank you again for being here, and also to all the other people who joined us. And I think it's a good, your last comment, your last note, I think was a nice way to end this meeting. And for all you participants, if you're interested in the other upcoming events, go to Ocean now and have a look at it. We would be very happy if you joined us again. And I would say have a nice day, and till next time, maybe.
Thank you for having me
so much. Have a nice day. Thank you, Saša.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.